Welcome to the Echo Essentials podcast.
I'm Scott Clark.
I'm Dave Dale. And we just had a really interesting conversation with Mr. Dave Hansman from the Redpath.
Senior VP at Redpath, and they're 62 years now, and they're winding up for the 100th anniversary celebrations as well. But we often... Well, I didn't realize when I was in broadcasting how important mining was to our community. And then like these private companies like Redpath, Cementation, Bort Longyear, Farraco, these are huge players on the global stage. Mm-hmm. And they just kind of just blend in with the community. But they are big community builders, right? They support the arts, they support young people. They're prolific in our community.
Well, you know, North Bay was built on forestry and mining up north. The O&R, which was the main juggernaut of North Bay's employment for a long time, was serving mines, right? So it was it's a huge part of it for sure. And it was interesting to hear him, the passion he had, even though he's been there 48 years, right, working. He's still passionate about it, and he cares, right? You'd think, you know, you wouldn't have to at this stage in his life.
He's super passionate about it. I'm excited about what's in the future. My son, he dipped his toe into the mining sector, and he basically said to me, he said, "Dad, I just want to be home at the end of the day. Really, is what I want." Like, because he would go for a month, right, and he'd work 12-hour shifts for 30 days straight. He would come home, he had lost like 20 pounds, but they feed you, they take you there, but that was in the early days until he was a helper, right? So he has all the jobs that you and I wouldn't want to do, right? But now he was so excited, he's working at ONTC in the refurbishment section now, and super happy with all that. You know? Well,
there's so many people that even if they're not directly in mining now, they got their start or have a foundation of that work and work ethic it takes to stay in the mining industry. Yeah.
Oh, I think that time that he spent in the mining industry really formed his work ethic. He's switched on now. But you know, speaking of Redpath, that we talk about arts, culture, and different things like the block parties coming up very shortly in downtown, which is a fantastic event put on by the real estate board. I think they do a great job. There's lots of sponsors that support it.
Yeah, August 24th.
August 24th. Yeah. And I know when I was co-chairing Heritage Festival with John Strang, that Redpath was a huge player. You needed Redpath to be involved from a large sponsorship side to put on a huge event like that. You needed these companies that would, invest their resources into it, right? That supported we had 700 plus volunteers that weekend, which is incredible when you think about it. There was no other event since that's had something like that.
On Saturday, I was actually at the what is the shadow of that is the summer music festival that spread out across the summer. But on Saturday was the Hot Summer Nights music festival, and it was free. And everybody in North Bay and the tourists that were here, the people at the marina, everybody enjoyed the music and have been for days and weeks. And I was talking to Brian Risk, and he's talking about how it is creating a destination place for people that can drive here from an hour and a half away all summer. They can just go Tuesday or Wednesday night when people are playing. So it's not the Heritage Festival, that's for darn sure, but it has a little bit of impact.
I would love to see it come back in whatever form it is, like a large festival like that. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a music festival. It could, I think, absolutely we should, tie in some type of air show with it. If there's something that will bring people to a city, you put an air show in, people will travel long distances to go to air shows. They'll come from all over. And then you supplement it with music and arts and culture. I think in the early days, it was some really neat things. Remember, we had different sections. They even missed, like we used to be at Lee Park, and then you would have like the Davidi Club, and you'd have the local Polish club, and you'd have the different clubs, and they would have their food tents. It was fantastic. But we ended up getting away from it. It's like policy and different policies changed that you couldn't do that. At that time, the country open singing competition was massive at that time.
I just interviewed Harley Renaud there yesterday.
And
they're trying to bring it back for 2025. But North Bay's lost it. It goes calendar in the Bill Barber Center.
Yeah.
And they still have that civic holiday weekend when they want to have it. And there's actually a fundraiser today at the Leon's to try to help them get some money for the country singing contest.
You know what's interesting about that? My first year in as co-chair with the Heritage Festival, Harley he strong-armed me to get more money.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I said, Harley, we don't have any more money. Did you follow the news? What happened the year before? I think there was a loss. And, it becomes a political thing, right? So they're not going to throw more money at it. They said, we have the resources. We have the footprint, the resources. We have, the radio station. CCAT was like fully engaged in the whole process. And we had all of those things.
So how did he strong arm you? Was he threatening what?
To close it. And he did. And it never came back.
Yeah.
Right? Because the Heritage Festival had the infrastructure that could support it. So infrastructure is a massive cost in it. So we had the infrastructure, we had, we would seed it with money and that sort of thing. And then he says, no, we'll just get our own sponsors and do it. And I think that personally, this was me, and I would love to have a conversation with Harley over time, but we fought hard with Harley a few times. When I say fought hard, met with him, please, don't do this. Keep it. Let's not lose the footprint, because we actually had, at that time, we owned the footprint of all of those parks and everything, like the Heritage Festival Committee. So we could actually use it. And if you were going to take parts of the land away, then you would never get it back again in that contract to do it, even though it's a not-for-profit organization. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. I bet you Harley has a different take
on that. Well,
it
did come back, and they were doing it in the calendar. And I think I was looking in the archives for a particular singer that's coming out of Haley Station, right? And somebody told me they saw her up north. And so I found her photo. Actually, she had won the 2017 country singing contest, right? So I don't know. These organizations, the small ones, Nipissing Country Music Association, they do their thing. And I can imagine it's unwieldy as far as trying to deal with them, as far as a big picture of the heritage, thing.
Well, it had all these different groups, right? You had the air show group, you had this group, there was all these different groups that you had to negotiate with. There was the hole-in-one group, right?
Yep.
There was all these different groups that you had to negotiate with and support them in their needs. But there was no additional funding and everything. And we as a group had to go out and find the funding. You had to find the Redpaths. You had to find the different groups that are going to sponsor all of these things, right?
And they just doing their thing at Lee Park. Yeah.
Yeah, and they would do their thing. But that was the beauty of it. If we could put it all together like that, then they could do Lee Park, and it was like you could go watch country singing, and there was no cost associated with that, because I don't think you needed a wristband.
Yeah.
I don't think you needed a wristband for country open singing.
Yeah, I don't recall that.
No, I don't think so. I don't, because it was in Lee Park and we didn't have gates there. It was for the main stage stuff, right?
And he still wants to have it so that the people don't have to pay. So, which makes it hard to put something on.
Well, then you need the infrastructure and everything, the cost of all that, right? Yeah. It's always this balance of trying to make it all work.
Yeah, and I think with the block party, they have a good sort of foundation of their event as well, But eventually those foundations require fresh blood, fresh oxygen, fresh sponsors, and people to organize it. So I think over the years I've seen numerous things come and go in different iterations. Even the Heritage Festival was different when it started. It was, and then it was really massive with the air shows. And then it was different without them, right? So... but that air show was a big attractor. It's just, that's a tough one, though. It's a tough one.
Because we did stats, there was more people that went through the Heritage Festival gates on that long weekend than would go through Capitol Center, Pete Palangio, and Memorial Gardens combined in a year.
Yeah.
There was over 100,000 people that went through those gates. That was successful. It was, and yes, it's weather dependent, but if you have the petting zoos and all these different things, and we attempted different things as well. So I think my second year doing it, we actually moved the Conklin Fair over to the old, at the end of Memorial. It's going to be the New Vision Park condos now.
Oh, over right beside the
Rona.
Yeah.
You don't know what it's called?
I'm going blank. Yeah, I'm going blank.
So
It's been so many years.
And
There's three different names.
It's
it'll come to me.
Kenrock.
There you go.
Old Kenrock site.
Yeah.
So we actually put it on the old Kenrock site. We're thinking, okay, what we could do is actually literally reduce the footprint a little bit so that it was easier to walk to, right? You could walk to everything. But in that learning experience, there was things about when the air show didn't come back and we moved it. What we learned was, one, when you have an air show, those planes start flying and testing the sight lines and everything well early in the week, Monday, Tuesday, and then they'll have media rides and things like that. So planes are flying and there's a noise and vibration in the city that's kind of cool. It's this energy that starts getting created. And then when Conklin would come in, because they would bring in, it was a big Conklin exhibit. When you put them down at Lee Park, there was the massive traffic that went back and forth, so you could see the whole thing. When you put it at the Kenrock site, it was literally hidden.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh gosh, but we did it one time, missed opportunity. And even I think the last Heritage Festival, last summer in the park, was when they did that concert at Memorial Gardens, which was a massive bust. But here's the thing, they needed to do that because there was, even when I was doing it, it was like, why don't you hold it indoors and weather doesn't matter and da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. Just so happened that weekend, I'll never forget, it was a gorgeous weekend. People didn't want to go indoors.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, damn.
And I would say there's other things that affect it, other nuances. Like I didn't like the lineup of the music for the indoor at that weekend. It was just nothing I wanted. It was very much for young people. So that combination of good weather and who you have playing makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very hard to get it right and keep getting it right.
Yeah.
Because people have new ideas and some work, some don't. You try it and there's just, who knows?
Yeah.
A big event planning is big risk.
Yeah. I've always felt like bring groups that sing anthems and I think the first or second year I said, because that's not my forte, planning, the entertainment for that. But my suggestion was, well, it was an anniversary date. I forget how many years, like 20 years or whatever it was. And I said, well, let's go back 20 years ago and let's pick a band that would have been big at that time, right? So that was like April Wine and Trooper and all this. And I said, let's put together a anniversary one because everybody knows all those songs, right?
Yeah.
And they'll show up and it's fun and you're singing and all that stuff. And then actually Jacques Béjean from Voyager days called me and he was pissed off. He says, those are our groups. You can't have those groups. I'm like, gosh, you're fighting with everybody just trying to put on a festival. I said, well, actually, you don't own those groups, Jacques. Like, we didn't end up doing it, but we had I think Stompin' Tom, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
Stompin' Tom, come on.
Yeah.
You got to have Stompin' Tom. Tragically Hip one year. Those were iconic Canadian bands.
Oh, yeah, there were some good times there. So you look almost lobsterish. Have you been out on the water on your boat?
On the boat quite a bit, only because the first part of the summer you can't. On Nipissing, you can't get out on the boat if it's windy. Yeah. Right? You just the chief
North
commander
Bay has a great summer both weeks.
Yeah, both weeks, and it's been really nice the last couple of weeks. And so explored. I went down South Bay and down the South River. So if you go to South Bay and you go deeper, you can actually go down the South River. And which takes you at the end. There's a waterfall. It's beautiful. Also did French River. I love going down the French River, the Gibraltar Pass, Canoe Pass. You cut through French River down to Doquis. Then you go farther down to the Chartier Dam. And then you can go walk down and you can jump off the rocks. And there's a big waterfall there. It's beautiful. So yes is the answer. And I love exploring Lake Nipissing.
My cousin from the Sioux just purchased a new boat, and he was thinking, "Hey, I can cut through Huron and Georgian and come up the French and visit you." I said, "Well, you better have some wings."
Yeah. To get into
a couple
the upper
dams
French,
there.
get into the upper French. You'll need some. But it's amazing how many people who have grown up here who have never been down the French River.
Yeah.
Like, it's so beautiful. You literally can get lost down there.
Yeah.
It's so many tributaries and different things that you can go down, and you got to watch because, I usually have like $400 in damage on my prop or.
You need to know the lake a little bit for sure, right?
And then we have
tough.
nowadays you have the GPS units, right? Like there was no way I could go down without one of those, those GPS units that show you all the rocks and everything in there. Navionics.
Mm-hmm. I had one experience coming back across the lake. It was when Dylan was just born. The two stepdaughters, the wife. We were camping in French River, and we rented a 16-foot boat with a 20 horse on it, and we got it.
Giesler? Was it a Giesler boat?
No, but it was a wood craft boat, and we left from the North Shore. I can't remember the name. They used to have a lodge there in the creek, Laronde Creek. So we left. We went down there, and we're coming back, and there's a tornado, and on the horizon, I got 3 kids in the boat, and
That's scary.
it was so scary. Everybody was crouched down as far as they could go, and I was definitely overpowered with Lake Nipissing getting choppy. So it's a scary lake if you not experienced and prepared for sure.
And prepared because things change very fast, but. You can tuck into the Goose Islands or the Manitous or different. Yeah, you sort of need to know your exit, the lake.
We had a cottage on a small island, and the island got hit with lightning.
Oh my!
It was a crazy trip. Yeah, okay. It was wild.
That probably ended your adventures on Lake Nipissing with the family.
No, we tried again, but bigger boat, bigger motor.
Yeah.
So it's cool. So enjoy the rest of your summer, I guess.
Let's get to Dave Hansman. I'm curious to see more of what Redpath has to offer, and
I think people who listen to that will have a different understanding of what mining's all about and how important it is. And they're doing a much better job in all kinds of aspects of safety and stuff.
Founded in 1968, Voyager Aviation is a proud member of our community, providing worldwide aviation services from our headquarters right here in North Bay. If you're looking for a challenge, change, or want to expand your current career in aviation, Voyager is hiring for a wide range of technical and non-technical roles, including pilots, aircraft maintenance personnel, corporate administration, machinists, supply chain professionals, and more. Be part of a workforce that is over 400 strong, supporting humanitarian, government, defense, and civil aviation operations around the world. For a career in aviation and beyond, learn more about open positions and career paths at voyav.com.
Today we welcome Dave Hansman in from the Redpath Mining Group. I've known Dave for a number of years. I actually knew him as a skier. I didn't know what he did for a living. We used to ski together on, what was it called on Tuesday nights? Was it Tuesday or Monday nights at the Laurentian?
It was Monday night lessons.
Monday night lessons, but it was adults only,
at the Laurentian Ski Club.
Yeah,
yes.
Laurentian Ski Club. It used to be a lot of fun. And Dave's like Benjamin Buttons. He ages in reverse. Never gets older. And you look fantastic, Dave. And you're here to talk a little bit about Redpath. Not a little bit. Let's talk a lot. 60 years of Redpath. How long have you been with Redpath?
Well, the company's been around for 62 years almost, and end of October, and I've been at Redpath at the same time. Well, I've been 48 years at Redpath, despite my young looks.
I know. So you were when you joined Redpath. So it's real. How big was it at the time? 48 years ago.
Well, my payroll number might indicate it. I'm payroll number 23. No, there is a story behind that because payroll numbers came out of when we first got computers, and the first software we had was demanded employee numbers. So So we started with A, B, C, D, etc. I happened to be number 23. There was about 35 people working in the office at the time, and that was in 1976. And we had a few hundred people working in the field.
I went through
Things have changed.
Yeah, I went through a couple of the books. There's a few names in there I don't really know, but you could tell it was a different time because some of the directors had pipes. And it was a very different time. But, well, even back when I started in radio, you could smoke in the studios, and it was a different time.
And smoking was a part of our offices in the early days, but that changed for the better a long time ago.
So your role with Redpath today is what?
I work with what we call Redpath Mining Inc., which is the parent company of the Redpath Group of companies. And we are headquartered here in North Bay. So Redpath Mining Inc. has various business units that report to it. Australia, Europe, Africa, and also what we call the Americas business unit, which is important for North Bay, and also a drilling division called our raise boring division is another business unit. The Americas business unit has our most obvious office. It's up on McEwen Avenue, and we have shops on Highway 11 North. So anybody driving north, if they're paying attention, will see our shop facilities, warehouses, and all what up there.
It's huge.
And then along Highway 17 going west, sandwiched between McEwen and 17 is our what we call America's office. But that was actually the headquarters for Redpath for a very long time. Now it's the headquarters of what we call our America's business unit. So
I'm interested in talking about Redpath's history here in North Bay over the last 55 years, almost half of what the city's history is. And I know through the years of covering a lot of fundraising things and campaigns that Redpath has Camp Tibblecombe, at the hospital, they're everywhere, that they've helped build North Bay as they've built up as a company. So can you give me a little bit more information about, those type of things as far as Redpath goes?
Well, we'll look at a bigger picture first and then drill down to North Bay.
No pun there.
As a part of the word now is sustainability, under which encompasses what people are hearing is ESG, environmental, social, and governance aspects. And there's social key parts of that are involvement with your community and helping your community develop. We have a lot of communities because we have offices in so many places around the world. We have projects in so many places around the world that we have a lot of different communities to be involved in. And so we try and do our part to the extent that we can in each area that we work. But North Bay is close to it's close to our hearts from a head office and America's business point of view. So North Bay does get a lot of attention, and over the years, many years, Redpath has been involved in different aspects. You mentioned the hospital. You mentioned Camp Telecom. You also see the YMCA. You'll have seen our logo on children's sports teams, that type of thing. And one of the trends around the world, not just in North Bay, is that we tend to focus on things that help kids. We get involved in certain places in school programs. We've done things in Argentina where we gave backpacks loaded with goodies for kids at school, so they went to school with Redpath backpacks loaded up with things. But we do similar things in Africa and with indigenous groups in Australia, and so it's. So
you're actually building wherever Redpath is working. You're building community within those communities.
We try to help because it's an important part of mining. Mining is about building communities, In fact, you couldn't build a community if you didn't have mining. Well, we can talk about that later. But so when we go in, as a part of what we do when working with our clients, we look for opportunities to assist, supplement what a lot of our clients are doing, because we're there to help construct the mines generally. In some cases, we will operate the mines if they would want us to do that. But in general, we're in and out for a large part. Sometimes we get in there and we're in for a very long time. Like, for instance, in Indonesia, we went there in 1982, and we're still there. And we have almost 1,700 people working at that site. In fact, significantly more recently, it's almost 3,000 people working at that site. And you're really a part of that world when you're doing that. Similar things happened in our adventures in Mongolia, where we have over 1,000 people working, and we try to get local training programs going. We look for local employment opportunities, get people from the local communities, get them in, get them trained, because getting people work, getting them trained has it's massive benefits, not just for Redpath, but for the local community. So there's a lot we can do.
When I arrived here in 91, I said, "Oh, Redpath." I said, "Is that the sugar company?"
Yeah,
that's an old thing, right? Like,
well, it's actually kind of one of the fun jokes we have.
But it's not. They're not related in any way.
No, there is a deep family history. If you go back through Jim Redpath, who was a founder of the company, through his family, there is a connection. But no money came from that. It was a self-built thing from.
So, and the reason I'm sort of going the Redpath route, I'd like to talk a little bit about Jim Redpath.
Yes.
Because I believe in some of the things you're saying right now about community building and education, the arts, all of these different things. The Redpath family, specifically Jim Redpath, the prolific way that he has supported the arts and community over the years is probably a fundamental pillar for that company. And maybe tell me or tell us a little bit about, for the people who don't know Jim Redpath. And
yeah, it's an interesting guy. He was 40 years old when I started working with the company, and he'll be 88 this year. Lives in St. John's, Newfoundland now. But Jim, from the legends I've been told, he fell in love with art in a way by accident and around 1970, but got very, very interested in the subject. And our offices here really demonstrate that. Anybody, whoever has been in our offices has been through an art gallery.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, we all really appreciate it because we become attached to our paintings, you know, that are in our office. And my office, fortunately, I've got 3 of them, and I've had one of them has been with me since 1986. The other one's been with me since 1990. And one I have, the largest one, is one that was during Jim Redpath's office when he was still working with us. So a little bit of an attachment to that.
Is there an art curator? Does Redpath have an art curator?
Dennis Geeden has been.
Okay.
Yeah, has been looking after that, and Caroline Landry has also been very instrumental in that. So. It's interesting. We've all learned to appreciate a lot more. But Jim's involvement with that went beyond. As I think you probably know, he after he started to turn over the day-to-day operations of our company to the managers, he got involved with the North Bay Arts Centre.
Yeah.
And was the manager of the Arts Centre and made a huge difference there from what I saw. So Jim was a mining engineer, went to McGill University. He worked Well, his father was a mining engineer as well, and at one time was the chairman of Dome Mines. So he was very senior. Jim grew up in that environment, and he got interested in sort of the more macho aspects of mining, which are the shaft sinkers and mine developers, and worked for a contractor, but decided in 1962 that he didn't want to work for somebody else. He wanted to work on his own. And so he struck out on his own and formed JS Redpath Limited. And that's the 62 years now. We'll be celebrating at the end of October because it was 62 years since he did that. And the company grew from just one guy with an idea and helping people design some shafts up in Quebec to what we have today.
So wait, so I'm not great at math. You'd be way better. So you're saying like in his mid-20s, Jim Redpath started this?
Yeah,
thing?
he was
Oh my
26 years old.
gosh.
Yeah.
I don't know how to tie my shoes in my mid-20s. Like that's incredible.
Yeah. Well, that's it is kind of interesting, and so in the we're not sure the exact date, but in the late 60s, he wrote what we call our philosophy and our guidelines for success. And these are sort of timeless rules of engagement and how we will do our business. And they're still relevant today. We still practice them today, and we make sure that all new employees are aware of them, and this is how we work. We go through a process of evaluating them every once in a while just to make sure we're still on track with them, but they're relevant. And he did this far-reaching thing 60 years ago.
Those principles still are in play today.
And the interesting thing is in this day of sustainability and ESG, they all play into it. When we started getting into the sustainability and ESG aspects of mining, it really became known publicly in about 2019. They started getting it was in the news, and you could see that writing's on the wall. We better learn more about this. But as we learn more about sustainability, and how you conduct yourself in a sustainable manner, we realized that you could all turn it right back to the guidelines and philosophies that Jim laid down years ago. It was actually very comforting and made life simpler. This is what we do. Mm-hmm. This is what we have been doing for years, and so all we had to then do is build around that. Mm-hmm. For our sustainability goals. For example, safety first, last, and always is a slogan that he put together that we have lived with forever. That's a key part of not only the environmental aspect, but also the social aspect and the governance aspect. Safety first, last, and always, because of all the policies and programs and know what you have in place to do that. So it fits right across the board. And that's a key thing about all of the sustainability goals. There's no one sits independent of the other. That's good.
So, and speaking to that, so the evolution over the last 60 some odd years with Redpath, but just in the evolution of mining, I remember Roy Slack, president or former president of Cementation, who was a Redpath employee, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a Redpath employee.
Yeah, we worked side by side. His office was next to mine. We had a lot of fun together.
Yeah, like it seems like everybody went through Redpath. It's kind of like in the drilling industry, you went through Bort Longyear. Yeah. And then you there's sort of this path to success, right?
Well, it's interesting. I think I consider Jim Redpath a mentor.
Yeah.
I consider our mutual friend Alex Spears, who will insist that he hired everybody at Redpath. But although not strictly true, but
isn't he like employee 4 or something? He's low, right? He's one of the early ones, or that's what he told me.
Well,
God bless him.
He joined the company not early on in 1968.
Yeah.
But they were mentors to me. And our job is to mentor people along the way. But if you ask Roy Slack, he will also say Jim Redpath was a mentor. I can say that confidently because Roy told me that just this past year. So there's a lot of people will consider it. And if you do look at our most of our competition, there's a path through Redpath.
Absolutely.
So
when Roy and I were talking one time, and he said, I think it was in the 80s. He said there was a time in the 80s where there was a mathematical equation that this is how many people are going to die depending on how many feet you're going down. And it was like, it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And then as I was going through some of the literature that you provide, and there was this letter that stood out to me, and it was a letter Jim Redpath, and I only know him as this incredibly gracious, quiet-spoken man. He wrote this letter, and it's in this 60th or 50th anniversary book you have about this, accidents and fatalities are unacceptable. And it's like you print this 2-page letter about this stops today. And he even capitalized like today when kids yell in their text messages.
I know exactly.
You know the letter I'm talking about?
I know the one you mean, and it's a very direct message to everyone. And I think that is a good example of the mining industry as a whole. When you go back, that was written in like 1985 or something like that. And when you go back to the previous generations, there were certain things that were acceptable. You just a certain number of people are going to get killed for every mile of shaft you sink or whatever it happens to be. We can't even think that way anymore. None of that is acceptable, and it hasn't been for the last generation. Unfortunately, a lot of people's, the general public's impression of the mining is exactly that it's dark, dirty, and dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that anymore. It's one of the safest industries that you can work in. And Redpath, you can see since those times, you look at our safety record, it's a huge improvement. And huge improvement. It's almost like do things still happen? Do you get cut fingers? Do you have to get a stitched out again? Yes, but even those we take a great deal of care to deal with them and avoid them. So we're working in one of the safest industries that you can think of now, and especially when you start comparing it to the general construction industry or forestry industries or whatever. Unfortunately, mining gets a big play when something else.
Compare it for a second. Great point. Like forestry, like these other big industries. Where does mining play when it comes to safety?
Well, I'm not the guy to answer that with specific facts and figures. We just know that over the years, the mining industry has played out very well in comparison, and people are, if they're interested, they should go and look those up. Some other conversation we have, I'll have those statistics for you.
Absolutely. Okay? But I do believe like it's become incredibly safe, and we work with companies on the marketing side, and one of the things that we talk about, we're constantly producing things, safety messages, and one of the safhe messages we wanted to, it was again through Roy Slack, whose mentor was Jim Redpath. He really leaned into drug use. Right. And it's like, it's unacceptable. And here's what could happen. Like, you can get injured. What was interesting from a marketing side, our idea was this: we're going to take some of the common safety equipment that you use today, and we're going to damage them, and we'll show the damage, and we'll say, this is what could happen without showing anything overly graphic. What was fascinating about that whole process, do you know how hard it was to actually, like the mining boots? We went to a wrecking yard, and I forget what the thing's called. That giant thing that squishes cars? That was the only thing that could actually cut the
crusher.
Boot. The crusher. Crush the boot. We used a shotgun for the safety glasses. Still didn't penetrate them. And then same thing for a chopper for the like the equipment itself has the evolution of that equipment. I'm sure back 60 years ago it was just rubber boots. Now these boots are incredible.
But that's all good examples, Scott, because it has all evolved. But we also have to understand that most of the jobs in mining don't involve hard hats and coveralls and safety boots and belts and all this. That is just one very important part of it. But there are literally hundreds of career options. Just even looking at Redpath from a point of view of career options, we are on the process of trying to educate all of our people to understand that they're in the mining industry. Even though they're sitting, working in a nice office downtown North Bay or on McEwen Avenue or in Brisbane, Australia or whatever, they have to understand that they're in the mining industry. They're being paid by the mining industry. They're miners, right? Yeah. Even though they come to work dressed like this, or probably better. You know? and
they don't. Not everybody gets a helmet with a light on it, right?
But we also vital to our business. The pointy end of our spear are the people who are prepared to go and do the construction and underground, sink the shafts, excavate the tunnels, and operate all the different equipment. That's what our clients want. Mm-hmm. And so that's a way to just roll into what it is that Redpath does, because we're in the mining industry, but we provide a very specific skill set of through our people to be able to construct and operate mines. Mm-hmm. And mining companies themselves generally don't have the construction capabilities. It's specialty when you're looking at sinking mine shafts and doing the tunneling work and what that is. Not necessarily in the realm of every mining company's expertise. So they come to companies like Redpath to do that. That's what allows us to be able to be in a place like North Bay, right? Because we don't need a mine. Right now, I just got the stats here. We're working. We've got almost 10,000 employees. Just a few shy of 10,000 employees
globally, right? Globally,
yeah, globally.
Because you're all over the world.
Dave was asking me earlier about North Bay, and we can talk about that. We've got 106 projects on 70 different mine sites around the world in 14 different countries for 43 different clients. That's very challenging.
It's massive.
It's significant for sure, and our business volumes are roughly 20 times now what they were just 20 some years ago. When we were in we came into the 21st century. Mm-hmm. During the company has grown about 20-fold. So it's significant. It's been a very interesting ride.
Hi, I'm Natasha Laframboise, sales representative with the Laframboise team at Realty Executives Local Group Inc. Brokerage. We are a local real estate team here in North Bay. Our team of sales representatives, Matt Laframboise, Phil Seguin, and Adam Negro, are ready to help you through the buying and selling experience. We have been providing service to the North Bay and area community for over 17 years. Our goal is to provide knowledge, support, and guidance in order to prepare your home for sale, bring it to market using multiple selling strategies, and get it sold. As a home buyer, we have 2 buyer's agents ready to help you find your home sweet home. If you'd like to know more, check us out on our website, laframboiseteam.ca. We are always happy to help.
So you have kids and you have grandkids, and so would you encourage your family to continue the mining tradition, the Hansman tradition?
Yes, I would. But I'm going to admit that along with many other people, I didn't do a good enough job educating them. But one thing that really hit home with them, Dad, safety first, last, and always. I couldn't get away with anything at home.
Yeah.
Without my son or my daughter looking at me and say, Now, is that safety first lesson? No, is it? Yeah. So, and it's a good reminder to everybody. But definitely, mining it has a place. And that's the biggest problem is people only see the old thing of blackened faces from coal mines and hard hats and dirty all this kind.
It's highly skilled engineers. That's what Redpath is known for. The skilled engineers. There's technology with autonomous vehicles and
right? Yes, and that's just that's just a sample of what mining is like in total, with drones now being in use, automation being used in all sorts of situations. Trying to remove people from the workspace. We literally have technology now that would allow you to run loaders or drills and not underground from your basement in North Bay, Ontario. Or from your living room, wherever you want. You can do that, and the technology's there. The funds part of this is just imagine what the future is going to be. This is why I've been in the next year. It'll be 50 years since I graduated from mining school, but it's still exciting, this stuff, and there's so much more coming in the future that young people, if you're looking for an opportunity to do interesting stuff with modern technology and have a chance to travel and work with really good people, this is the mining industry is a place to be, and companies like Redpath are right in the forefront of that.
And you literally traveled the world, like you've been everywhere, all over the world. That's part. If that excites you, that could be part of your life, right?
Well, look, travel's not for everybody, but it's certainly for me.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we've got a lot of people in our company who are in the same vein. And if there's young people out there who want to see the world, this is the business to be in.
How do you get into it? How do you get into mining?
Well, there's lots of ways to get into the mining industry because we have. There's the traditional ways of taking mining engineering or mining technology or those type of things, but it's all the skilled trades. It's science. There's geoscientists. There's environmental scientists. There's lots of different science end of things, metallurgists and what that work in the mining industry and travel the world. But there's accountants. There's project managers. There's a host of positions for people in the mining industry, and they all travel. Our senior accounting guy, he and I had an experience, and he still talks about it. We were down in Argentina, and we were flying in a helicopter over the mountains trying to spot sites for where a new tunnel could be excavated, and we were dropping flour bombs, like literally bags of flour out of the helicopter in order to make a big white splash on the ground so that ground crews could go in and find it. That guy. This is just a little before GPS was. But the point is, it never. It's just some of those kind of experiences. But yes, travel. I'm not alone. I have traveled to over 50 countries.
What's the coolest place you've ever been? We went, okay, this I would never think I would ever be here, because you've been all sorts of places.
Yeah. I don't know. I've traveled extensively in South America, but I've been in several countries in Africa and Mongolia. Mongolia was pretty interesting. Indonesia.
Yeah.
And there, I won't say any of them was the coolest. I always find them all interesting.
Yeah.
And there's something to take away from every place you visit, whether it's my wife sent me a picture taken 7 or 8 years ago, and it was sitting on the steps of a school with a whole bunch of school kids in their uniforms sitting in Ghana. It just happened to be walking by, and all these kids were there, and we got talking to the kids and went and sat down on the steps in front of the school with them, and somebody took a picture of it, and it's just a cool picture, of all these little kids in their school uniforms. And but you have to look for those. And if you're interested in that kind of stuff, food, if you want to, there's opportunities. I know you like food. I can tell just by the kind of stuff. But if you want to explore the world of food and wines, you can do this through mining.
Yeah.
For a long time we had this joke about Redpath only put an office where wine was produced. But when you think about it, Canada, the U.S., Australia, Europe, South Africa, all great wine producing areas. What a coincidence, But pure coincidence. But nevertheless, it adds an element of interest to if you're leaning that way.
We're running out of time, and it sounds like we're just starting the conversation.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to definitely make another arrangement to come back and talk about the environmental stuff, some geopolitical information about where you're at different times of the year, when major wars are going on, and how that could be a really interesting conversation.
Yes.
I just wanted to end by saying you were talking earlier. 290 employees live here in North Bay.
Yeah.
And 100 of them are the ones that travel and do that.
Yeah, that's a good.
That's a significant number of people, and for a private company here in North Bay, I think top 5 for sure. Anybody can tell me who else has got 290 employees? I'd like to hear it. So thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate this. It's with the city's 100th birthday coming up next year. You guys have 55 years here, more than half of that. It's good to know that this type of foundation is here to stay, right?
Yeah, and the mining industry is here to stay. It's a significant part of what North Bay is, and people don't really know that. But just watch. We're going to be trying to work together with the Canadian Institute of Mining local branch and the city to just figure out how many businesses and how many people are employed in North Bay beyond Redpath and the Lakes of Cementation. That their livelihood, their families, everything is supported by the mining industry. It's very significant. It'll be interesting. Stay tuned.
Yeah, it's, I remember saying to someone that Sudbury, I was just like, "Wow, that's the mining capital." And I said, "Well, yeah, they do lots of mining there, but just know that everybody here in North Bay, all the smart people, we actually designed how you put the hole in the ground in Sudbury. It was us that did that. And within a 4-hour radius of North Bay, I think over half of the mining people in the country work. 4 hours of here. So it's really close. Timmins, Sudbury, all these different places.
Well, that's why did Redpath choose to come to North Bay in the first place? Because it was there at the time. Jarvis Clark was producing mining equipment, and Jack Clark was on the board of directors of Redpath in the early days, and he. And Jim Redpath was working with Jarvis Clark as a board member there. So he was, even when he was 26, and he was coming down to North Bay on a regular basis. So he was seeing North Bay. And Jack Clark said, well, why don't you give North Bay a try? And so Jim did. He sent Alex Spears and a fellow named Norm Menard down to North Bay to find an office and sort of get things set up. And so, yeah, that's how we ended up being. And it was, why North Bay? Why did Jarvis Clark come here? Same reason. Close to Sudbury, close to Timmins, close to Noranda, the northern mining areas in like Chibougamau and all that. Yeah. You could get there easily. Easy to get to Toronto, where a lot of the mining companies are based. So North Bay was very strategic. And it's interesting, when you wanted to attract an employee, most of our employees were coming from the north. So coming to North Bay was coming south. All right. So that was a good draw as well. Still have the northern atmosphere, the opportunities for fishing and hunting and all the other things that they're used to, but come to North Bay. Drive to Ottawa in 4 hours, Toronto in 3.5, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's a good strategic move.
Great having you here, Dave. And we got to have you back again.
Yeah. All right. It was a good conversation. Now we can change the slogan to Gateway of Mining, right?
That'd be a good idea.
As far south as you want to go. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
It's been another Echo Essentials podcast.
I'm Scott Clark.
And I'm Dave Dale. Thanks for liking, sharing, and commenting. That helps us. And sign up for the newsletter at northbayecho.ca.